Hi, welcome back to episode 2 on building our tic-tac-toe game in PhaserJS and Nakama. In this episode, it's all about creating our front-end UI with PhaserJS, setting up all of our assets, and making the visual aspect of our tic-tac-toe game. The first thing is pretty standard. You have a big play button, and once you click play, it takes you to the searching for an opponent scene. Once Nakama finds a player for us to play with, we will redirect Phaser to our in-game screen with the two clients connected together. So let's get started with the actual code. In our last episode, we went through how to set up the basic structure of our game using Svelte and Phaser. In our App.svelte, we're going to add in the Phaser config for our game. We'll also create a config.js file to keep in our settings for our game. And for this example, we're just going to have the width and the height of our canvas. Next, we'll need to actually create our game scenes. Let's start with the main menu. We'll create a class which extends phaser.scene, and in the constructor, we'll give it our name which we want to name this scene. In our case, this is going to be main menu. In our create function, we're just going to add the basic code to match our designs from earlier. To make our buttons interactive, we can use a setInteractive function to make our buttons clickable and also to listen for event handlers on the object. And that's our main menu done. Next, we'll go to our matchmaking scene. This scene is pretty simple. In the preload function, we're going to add our spinner, and then in the actual create function, we're going to create our text and then load in the spinner animation. For now, we'll just set it to repeat forever, and later we'll add in the Nakama functionality to actually find our player to play with. So now the big scene, our game scene. This is going to be where the code gets a little bit more different, a little bit more complex, but don't worry, I'll walk you through it. Even though Phaser comes with a grid functionality and object, we can't easily interact with the individual cells ourselves. So the way we can overcome that is by creating 9 different rectangles that align exactly with the grid that we create in Phaser. We'll set these rectangles to be invisible. We can then add an event listener to each of the rectangles with a point down or an on-click event handler. Then each of these rectangles will call a draw function, which for now will just simply draw a X or a 0 to our screens. At this point, I should say that all of the source code is available in the description, so feel free to check that out if you get stuck anywhere. It's important to remember that PhaserJS isn't actually going to handle any of our game logic. It is simply displaying the instructions that Nakama will provide when it does all of the calculations in the backend. So now we have all of these 3 scenes ready. Now we just have to import them into our app.svelte file and put them in our Phaser config. If we run our development server now using npm run dev, we get to see all of the scenes that we created and its functionality. This is just the basic setup of our UI, and we're going to be changing some of the code in the future episodes, but next episode is all about integrating the Nakama.js library into our game. We're going to be going through how we can use device authentication to implement in our game, as well as going through some basics of how authentication works in general. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.